City builders are a cursed genre. They appeared during the golden age of gaming innovation and became one of the big staple game genres. The entirely contemplative appearance with no dynamic gameplay whatsoever would suggest that it's a chill casual game for chill people. But they all run on absolutely incomprehensible and alien math formulas, have GUIs created by people who speak in math to normal people in casual everyday life, and have some of the worst tutorials in the entire industry. Some city building games can be critically acclaimed or even fanatic acclaimed, but none were general public acclaimed. I knew a number of kids who claimed they played SimCity 2000 and SimCity 3000. Claimed, because all I ever saw them do is loading the cities pre-made by the developers and sending disasters into them. I literally never saw anyone start a city from scratch and do anything with that. I tried to play 2 and 3 myself, but I never could do anything but to run out of money. You are thrown into a sandbox with no campaign and no tutorial and told to entertain yourself for your own money. By the time SimCity 4 came out, the meta has shifted from city building to hell on earth rich people dictatorship building. The only way to play is to create colonized sacrificial ghettos to dump all your problems into, and to extract resources from, while your main rich people city does nothing but gets all the luxuries of life. And then there's the fact that SimCities run on the degradant Yankee zoning laws, and no, you never in your right mind would build a city like that, which is perfectly proven by Yankee ghettos, and slave prisons, and racism, and being the worst pollutant destroying the earth for all the rest of the humanity. Impression Games was making their forgotten little games. They even tried to, allegedly, clone SimCity by putting it into Roman setting and adding the military conquest. Allegedly, because in dead internet no one can serve your search inquiry. There are no tutorials or good reviews on the YouTube. Trying to ask anyone about it brings no results. And trying to play it you smash at full speed into terrible incomprehensible GUIs, insane lack of any intuitive logic, and super hard difficulty. But at that budget it was successful enough to make a sequel. On the new tech it got better graphics, a lot of voice acting, better menus, and a new tutorial, which is more preoccupied with explaining how to move your camera around than explaining you how the damn game works. The game is so incomprehensible that people who play these games full-time as their main job cannot understand the mechanics or the combat GUI. And on top of the standard city builder planning, they've added some walkers to make the roads and routes even more crucial. And then a miracle has happened. For some reason for the third game, they decided just to start from scratch, creating an entirely new gameplay paradigm. They threw away the provincial level, threw away the battles and the conquest, and they went all in on the walkers. The system has its problems with how their primitive on AI works, but the effect on the gameplay is tremendous. The new style of city building games was born, entirely focused on home delivery services, and we reached that stage in our civilization only by 2020s. Buildings generate different metrics, representing danger or needs, and walkers walk around fixing the metrics. The goals of the maps are to reach certain metrics. For that you need to produce some goods for trade or for consumption. And unlike the typical glorified spreadsheets of other games, you can see the whole chain of production with your own eyes. Recruiters find workers, workers dig clay, delivery guys haul it to the storage, another delivery guy takes it from the storage and brings it to the potter. The potter makes tableware, and the delivery guy hauls it to the storage. The market worker takes the pottery from the storage to the market, and then delivers it to houses. It's that visual, and you can actually see the amounts carried at each step by eye. It's beautiful, it's intuitive, it's cool. It's gameplay. And then the game has the campaign with clear progression and increasing complexity. And there's a tutorial made by actual designers who understand how to relay the information in clear way. The whole chains of supply are explained with graphical examples. When you plan for housing, the plots do not disappear. Even if no one lives there, the housing sign remains. And people are not as dumb. Ghettos can eat garbage and drink whatever they can find, so you still have some population to work the jobs. Any person can now pick up the game and learn how to play it. But all the improvements in user-friendliness didn't turn it into a casual game. Every building needs a road access and workers in walking distance. The gods demand worship. Every house has a list of needs. The population is aging and retiring. It's still a pretty solid simulation of a city all in all. The campaign and the intuitiveness are what made the game so popular with general audience, and not just nerds. But Caesar 3 still has one filter. They created beautiful big sprites, and at the same time they filled the maps with rocks and other naturalistic elements of nature. But to run this game on the weak machines of the time, they significantly lowered the FOV and made the maps much smaller. They made the reservoirs to take up a ton of space, while having a laughably small range, and aqueducts to be a total pain in the arse to plan for. You can survive only for so long by making natural cities. Pretty early you have to think only about the numbers underneath the facade and plan according to artificial gamey efficiency. That's how the players discovered the gates bug to lock the necessary walkers inside the housing districts. Caesar 3 broke into new audiences previously unfamiliar with or outright averse to city builders. The formula is so successful, they just started milking it, swapping only the setting, while changing only some minor mechanics. Along came Pharaoh. Instead of the unwieldy aqueducts, it's compact wells with water buoys. Instead of just metrics goals, it's housing goals and giant monuments. You properly see what you are doing, you see the goal in front of you. You see the progress. Monuments as a fact has not that much gameplay once your underlying city is finished. And if you are a gamey min-maxer who just kicks out all elderly citizens out of the city, you don't even need infinite growth. Even in the most optimized city at the fastest speed, the monuments take a long time to build. But that's the point. They are monumental. Building monuments takes monumentally long time, and it's totally a vibe. The C3 gates bug got re-implemented as stoppers, and they look really dumb at first, because they prevent recruiters from wandering into the housing districts. But players who play with numbers instead of with the game discovered the ways to optimize the housing with them, creating closed services loops. The game also teaches the actual political lesson. When you have rich natural resources, you create lazy hell on earth crap holes designed only to extract the resources. When you don't have gold mines, you invest in human resources and make citizens as happy as you can to collect more taxes. After the first tutorial maps, the campaign starts to offer a choice between combat maps and city maps. Just like in the C3, it's really hard to tell the difference, and you can't save in a safe manner. You can only try to guess when you are gonna win the map, save there, then pick both options and see which one you like more. If you ever pick the option to extend your play, you could ruin everything. If you didn't save a short time before reaching the goal, you are now stuck playing as many years more as you've picked, and you can fall from the target metrics drastically and fast. Even if your additional time runs out, you won't be allowed to win until you reach the metrics again. The city missions require target housing, but the housing levels are very fickle. The thing with the walkers is that they don't have an AI. They randomly pick away at every cross-section, so the food delivery can go stroll near mines and granaries. With all the improvements in intuitive design, the games don't make a very good job explaining that some walkers are related exclusively to housing. I was always putting cops near gold mines, tax collectors, and the palaces to protect the people who actually carry the gold. But no, the only crime metric here is generated by the houses. Same goes for doctors and food. People don't get sick or hungry at work, only the houses generate the according metrics. But you can't separate the industry and housing either, because the recruiters have a very short range in these minuscule walking distance cities. So, you have to create disgusting ghettos near your industrial buildings. But then the culture metric takes all the houses into account when it is calculated. Bad, extremely unoptimized players can get very far into the campaign of Pharaoh playing very poorly. If the missions were properly designated, they could have picked only the military maps. They are easier on city planning, their requirements are much lower, but you don't get to build all those cool monuments. The combat is you simply moving the platoons around to where the enemy comes from. In a pinch, you can even defend with cops. You can build walls and defensive towers. Or you can cover the entire edge of the map with gardens. Gardens are impassable and indestructible. Pharaoh is so good it got a DLC. To get a sequel for a game, it is enough to just earn more money than its budget. But when the publisher decides to make a DLC, they estimate that the game itself is so popular, people are ready to buy it the second time for the full price. Those classic map packs were really lazy. Often they didn't even contain any story, like the Red Alert add-ons. I suspect these days more people talk about Caesar 3, but as you can see, that never got an add-on, and it's Pharaoh that got a modern remake. Pharaoh A new era improves the game a lot, but at the same time, they change some of the mechanics too much. All in all, it's a bit different game than the original. So, it's not a full replacement, but it's a great game. The original Walker system is revolutionary and amazing, but they are unintuitive in some aspects, so it's a bit rather kinda extremely fucking frustrating. The 3 poles of this game, each hogging the city design covers are recruiters, desirability, and culture. If you are not a turbo nerd worthy of the traditional impenetrable sandbox city builders, you will suffer. But A&E offers flexible difficulty settings. You can make the game casual, you can play the game in faux original state, you can just enable the global workers pool and play a super great city building game instead of a ghetto simulator. I dunno if they improved the default recruiters, no wanna risk it, so I used the global work pool. I didn't even try other switches, this one was enough to make the game amazing. Global work pool changes the gameplay and the planning a bit. Your buildings start to work basically instantly, and with no ghettos your city looks much better. You can concentrate on the housing loops as your city's core, where you maximize the number of workers, but restrict the growth, banning the lazy rich people, unless they are in the map's goals. This doesn't just lower the difficulty and makes it easier to reach the culture goals, but it actually makes much more sense. The cities are tiny, and all are walking distance. So, seeing recruiters running around shut down industrial buildings and screaming that the city has no workers, while at the same time your citizens complain about peak unemployment was extra dumb. The solved way to play the original is to make turbo-rich people district to hit population and culture metrics, and then spread tiny ghettos where people have no food or clean water everywhere on the map to support the industry, and optimize the production to have just-in-time production. Another switch I had to use is disable predators. In this game they are meaningless. Your cops will not attack them, and you have no army to clean them out, because the army is entirely remade. Instead of seeing invaders in your city and kiting them or gardening them, the game just plays a cutscene on a separate screen where whoever has the bigger numbers wins. But even if you win, the game can decide to randomly destroy some of your buildings. On one hand, you cannot use the defensive gardens anymore, which was not intelligent design. On the other, you can't play with the army, you can't outsmart the enemy, you can't use cops, you can't control wild animals, and the towers with walls and gates are absolutely damn useless. And new forts are ginormous and take a lot of space. So, the army is the biggest and the most controversial change in the new game. I dunno what to think about the remade combat myself, but that's for sure is not faithful, and isn't done for a good reason. Scrambling to hire more cops to try to stop armed military which ruins your city sure was a mechanic, and the fact that you lose even if you win really pisses me off. Enemy fleets are way bigger than your maximum of 7, because you almost always need at least 1 transport. If they started changing so many things, they could have as well added 2x2 housing plots, so upgrading buildings won't take over neighbors and screw your alignment. Or degrading 3x3 houses won't start to migrate out of the loop. As a new version, they could have removed the choice between military and monument cities, allowing to play both. Thankfully, you still can do it, but only by digging through the menus into the custom missions. The game needs a photo mode, which prints the whole map pixel by pixel into a .png file, with or without citizens and workers. There's not even a button to hide the GUI for screenshots. There are a lot of improvements to the GUI. You can zoom out to see your city fit to the nearest side of the aspect ratio in all 5 FPS glory while running on 10900K 3080T NVMe 4 PCIe SSD 128RM. You can customize the notification system. Sadly, you can't entirely turn off all the notifications. There's a hotkey to flatten your city, which is useful, but there's a lot of room for improvement. It replaces the sprites with identical squares, only the poorly visible markings are different. But on the minimap the buildings have different colors, could have used those. Or the icons from the building menu. Or custom sprites. And it flattens rubble, making it hard to see, and making you surprised when suddenly your district is on fire because you couldn't see that the fire station has collapsed. The game states the goals and how to achieve them more clearly, but entertainment and worship advisors still don't provide sufficient feedback. And, well, culture advisor is basically useless. They don't explain that housing quality and their fulfilled needs contribute to culture. When you win the map it offers extended play, and this one is totally totally safe. No matter what happens, the button to finish the map never goes away. Somehow a newer game misses functionality. You cannot rotate the city anymore, even if it was a fake rotation. The game opens with an awesome new cartoon. The new graphics don't look as ugly as HOMM3 HD, neither are they Warcraft R-style vomit. The buildings are on point, but I dislike what they did to the citizens. They gave all of them giant ugly chibi heads. A lot of the original art elements are lost, like the building menu. A lot of animations are lost, even if they've added the festival graphics. The stone carriers for monuments are replaced with boring lonely dudes carrying giant stone blocks solo. A lot of pretty GUI elements are replaced with generic modern boring Apple art. The campaign is totally fine. I don't know if it was in the original game, but your dynasty funds carry over, helping you to start the next city by injecting your cash into the budget. The custom missions offer you to play the alternative routes, but with no dynasty funds. You can play sandbox levels just to build monuments you like. There is a number of custom missions. Most of them are just additional maps, but some of them are gimmick missions, either having terrible terrain or a very specific way to play them. Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile. Originally it was a DLC made by other people. Itself it adds a new campaign, but many missions of it take place on the same map. It adds new buildings and makes some changes to the engine, which broke the original campaign. As it is integrated into the new game from the start, the developers made it work just fine. It already has a bad opening because the first several missions reuse the same map. At least could have moved that sequence deeper into the campaign. Supposedly Cleopatra maps carry the monuments over to when you revisit the maps, but you cannot see the old tombs when you build the new ones in the same place. The first maps have new cliffs, and they suck. Also, you have only one place to place your monument. The missions demand you to deliver goods you do not produce, which is stupid. This version of the campaign continues after the original, but your dynasty is reset. Some random events add pure fantasy. It's the meme events from the fantasy fiction book called Bible. Like frogs falling from the sky. One new building is Zoo, which reportedly broke the original game in some missions. It demands meat and straw to create entertainment. The new production chains are lamps and dyes. You either grow them or import the raw materials. Whole 4 missions take place in the same valley map. Then there are several missions that take place in the same Alexandria. And no, those didn't remember any of the placements. There are some weird maps with artificial challenges, which are kinda much more difficult than the original campaign, but at the same time, they are dumb AF. Like maps with no food and no resources, no production, even maps where you need to trade. The 5th map has no taxation or representation, and even no main square. Even if you win combat, your buildings get constantly destroyed. With the new no tactics combat, the original design doesn't work. Walls are useless, you can literally do nothing. In the original you could convert your population into cops, maneuver your army around, use walls, or just fortify the entire map with gardens. In this version this map is ultra nightmare. The community discovered 2 solutions to this map. The first one is to rush the goal extremely fast, before the invasion starts. In the other solution, the only winning move is not to play the game. You shut down everything, pay no money to anyone, and just sit and look at the enemies destroying the city, until you run out of enemies. You lose when out of money, not when you run out of citizens. And only then you start playing. There's a forest map where you have to import wood. The original game has an ending cutscene, but after a new awesome intro, here there's nothing, no ending. And considering that the campaign ends on Cleopatra, and that Cleopatra ends with a 5 minutes long mission, with the goal to just create houses for 1,000 population, that's a weak ending. Well, it's a content pack, new missions to play, and with its original bugs not present in the remake, you can play it. There's no proper escalation, you jump from average Pharaoh-style maps, to maps with extreme difficulty spikes, to micro-missions done in minutes. This release is filled to the brim with minor bugs. Sometimes you can play for, like, 10 hours and see only the minor graphical glitches. Sometimes your session gets cursed. First of all, this modern game doesn't have a proper render but is backed into 16:9 only. If you use any other aspect ratio you will get pillar or letterboxing. As if we live in Stone Age. The Navy status tab is the most reliable to bug out. You can have a fleet, but the tab will be empty and broken. The monument builders almost always get misaligned. The original monument building animations were absolutely awesome. Now you have missing animations, misaligned workers, and the new boring sprites. Your kingdom standing will be just falling. If you are the pharaoh and you get pharaoh salary, you will be stuck for ages in maps requiring kingdom rating. In some of them Ra will help you for a modest sum, but on the maps where you don't have access to Ra you have to catch that from the start and lower your salary. Some scripts can severely bug out, like stuck invasions or events that stop coming. You won't even notice that things are not as they should be. Some such things can be fixed by reloading, and you will get all the invasions at the same time. Sometimes the game gets stuck on a pause and that influences your saves, so you will have to restart the map. The main campaign run almost issue-free, but Cleopatra and custom missions were the most prone to breaking, especially with their custom scripting. The texts can bug out. I think this studio was chosen to remake Pharaoh because they already made their own impression game's clone game, but I tried that and it has the city builders problems of bad tutorial, bad progression, and bad campaign. The rumors have it that they possibly could be working on another impression game's remake. So, with how they recreated the original good progression and tutorials, I hope they did learn their lesson. The achievements range from gimmick ones to completion ones to really bad Grindathon ones. The joke achievement of 10,000 population served by one water boy is peculiar, but having 10,000 hobos in a ghetto for 100 years is an entire real-life day even at 5x. You can't even idle since the mandatory notifications will put the game on pause. Collapsing an architect post takes forever. Even 10 years achievements are cancer, and then some of them do not work as advertised.
Bacchanalia
Doesn't work normally. Wait, what
Vagos
has to do with Egypt that smashes beer, not wine? The only semi-reliable way is to pick only one god, do only one celebration, and only a mid one. 10 years is a lot of time, and no, it will not trigger exactly on the 10th festival. Dedicated bazaar achievement will not work normally. To get it, you should have no bazaars at all until you are ready. The 100,000 roads is another fake garbage. After I finished everything and got all other achievements, I was just starting sandbox maps and was mindlessly covering them with roads until I've got it. All in all, it's not exactly the same game as the original. There's too many changes to the balance and to the gameplay. But it is a great game. A great city builder. This is what you want from the impression game style of games, not what your nostalgic memory misremembers them to be.